What's up YouTube? Welcome to update number 4 of Midnight Tier List. My name is Petko and today we're gonna do the very first actually January and also 2026 tier list for the stream. Hope you guys appreciate it. And I know you guys been asking, hey, where are the tier lists? Why haven't you met us every single Sunday? Because there's pretty much been none. No class changes for the past couple of 21 days. But now we've got some slight changes coming into pre-patch, which soon to be coming also in beta, and some also unannounced hotfix that were present in some classes, like Unholy Decay. And quite honestly, we had like 20 days to play around different builds. People discovered different stuff. Also, the item level got increased to 289, which is pretty much mythic eye level. So a lot of cool, interesting things has happened for the past couple of weeks on beta. And today, we're gonna summarize it, update you guys, and yeah, let's see how things are. Anyway, let's begin. The first and foremost is gonna be Feral Druid, likely the worst version of Feral Druid I've seen so far for the past couple of years of me playing the game itself. Not only design-wise, but also tuning-wise, Feral right now is most definitely quite bad. Although that spec got buffed, unfortunately, it's still quite horrendous, you know. Playstyle, tuning, I mean utilities unchanged is still fine, but I soon to be expect this to get a lot of buffs its way. And if it doesn't, then I'll be very surprised, because then it will truly mean the death of Feral, which is quite sad. But yes, Feral needs to be buffed immediately. Or, I guess changed, because there's still like 7 weeks of tuning, give or take, so that can also happen. Windwalker Monk follows exactly after Feral. I think Windwalker Monk also needs some changes as soon as possible, because right now they are not doing that hot. I've tried different builds with Windwalker Monk, and whatever I was trying, it always ended up being like poor. Okay, I think the single target of Windwalker is most definitely not as bad as Feral, but the current design, especially the capstone talents on Windwalker, are just pretty, let's just say you're at a pretty big disadvantage. I would even go to the extent of saying Monk might not be the worst DPS, and I'll give it to Feral. Okay, so he can still be played in a physical column because of Mystic Touch. Your ST is not that bad, and quite honestly, if they buff Spinning Crane Kick or any other ability, Windwalker can be fine. You know, there's the new build that doesn't play Spinning Crane Kick, which actually was quite fun. Unfortunately, none of the other abilities does damage either, and the only truly one thing that does big damage is Fist of Fury and Flurry Strikes, right? So that's pretty much your gameplay loop. It is true, Shadow Priests have been getting nerfs for the past couple of weeks, even before, you know, they were considered really good. They got nerfed here and there. But one of the reasons why Shadow Priest was actually there is because your Void Torrent is still not 30 seconds, and it's supposed to be 30 seconds per the latest hotfix. Right now on beta it's 45, which makes it quite difficult to manage your Void form, because 45 seconds, yeah, you either gotta hold the third Void Torrent, you either gotta hold it, or you need to delay your Void form, which is most definitely super bad. That's why I don't think I truly know where this spec stands. Once this gets to be fixed and Void Torrent gets to be fixed to be 30 seconds, I will retest Shadow Priest and we're gonna see where it's gonna end up being. But for now, unsure. The damage profile of Shadow is actually incredibly good. You do high single target while pulling resources to do private target damage and funnel. So I could expect Shadow Priest to be performing really good, at least on the mid to high level keys, right? Utility pretty much unchanged, and durability same as always. One other thing I can say about Shadow Priest is most definitely one of the most fun range that I've had the pleasure of testing, and I would love to keep this spec as my ult, because the animations in playstyle is just 10 out of 10. Not Feral Priest, I said Shadow Priest. So that's about Shadow, guys. That's about Shadow. In unsure yet is gonna be this Demonology Warlock. Now, while Demonology Warlock is doing actually pretty good, and it probably belongs to an A+ tier, I think there are still quite a few bugs that prevent them from seeing Demonology's full potential. But if I gotta be honest, even if I don't count those bugs, Demonology is absolutely amazing right now. From design point of view, from damage point of view, even more utility than before. You are pretty tanky too. I love everything about Demonology. Even you get extra interrupt or extra purge / dispel if you need so inside your group, which is actually another reason why Demonology quality of life has improved significantly going forward to midnight. But I'm gonna place it on sure for now, and once they get those bug fixes that are needed, especially the Hellbent Commander bug, which is actually pretty atrociously bad, then I think this spec might even look to the bottom of S tier. It might, unless it gets nerfed again. And I believe the Brutal Companion, which is the percent damage crit amplifier, it still doesn't work correctly. I could be wrong, however. The last time it did not work correctly. So I would assume, since they haven't fixed the Hellbent Commander, that hasn't also been fixed. So therefore, I would say, and unsure yet until they actually decide to commit resources and fix it. Mistweaver Monk and Preservation Evoker. And the reason why I've placed them here is just purely from output point of view. I think neither Pres Evoker nor Mistweaver have exceptionally great output, both damage and healing. Like they're not per se unplayable. You can still do your weeklies with them and do high like mid-level content. But if you are comparing them to the top healers right now, I most definitely believe they are at a disadvantage. Specifically, the way to do healing on Pres Evoker has been discussed. Although has been attempted to get better and fixed, I still think it's an issue for the most part, especially when you're like, displaced in a different position and that Pres Evoker is trying to heal you and not stuck together. You're most definitely gonna be struggling at keeping people alive, right? Mistweaver Monk. On top of this, they also have mana issues as well, right? So that could be a pretty large disadvantage for them. In terms of utility, I mean, I hate to say this, but in a current, not really meta, but like in a current state of the game where magical damage dealers most definitely dominate, Mistweaver buff is just quite bad right now, like Mystic Touch. Also, the external defensive for Mistweaver is so bad. The Cocoon, I don't know. I would like to see that being changed. Press Discord would disagree. The thing is, like, every single Discord would disagree with what I say, because let's say I tell you guys Monk is bad, then at Monk Discord there's like 1 or 2 players that can make Monk be really good, and they'll be like, oh, you're wrong, Monk is good, So no matter which placing I place specific spec, there's always gonna be people that be like, that's not true, because I can do better than what you think what you think spec can do. So that doesn't really concern me. Now, Balanced Druid hasn't really seen quite a lot of changes for the past couple of weeks, if not at all. And the current tuning of the spec is most definitely atrocious. We are gonna get for sure Balanced Druid changes. The question is when. I think the output is the only reason why you're there. The design of the spec is exactly the same as the War Within, except the Eclipse now being an active button instead of being passive. Your single target is at times, so it comes to a point where your Starfold does better single target than Star Search, which can really tell you the severity of the current tuning on balance rate. So that's why I believe they're gonna change balance 100%. Right, but playstyle is largely the same on balance. Another spec, Retribution Paladin, is what I've placed also in a B tier. Just the same thing as Balanced Red. Red hasn't seen much changes for the past couple of weeks either. Be honest with you, I'm starting to get a little bit worried about Retribution Paladin, and I really hope for them to get some tuning ASAP done. I think the burst damage on Red is actually still fine. It's just the sustained damage is pretty bad. But I'm sure with time they will get there. No, don't close Discord, but most definitely make sure you get them buffed before they do so, which is important. Utility stays the same. Durability stays almost the same. They're losing one defensive because they're getting that defensive baked in within the your regular defensive options like Renewing Blaze for Evokers kind of stuff. I think that's all I can say about the Retribution Paladin. Also, outside of your major cooldowns, you have no prior damage, so your full path spec. So there's a few things I can say about Devourer. First and foremost, it is a spec that I believe wholeheartedly it will get changed. The current playstyle Devourer is extremely boring and bland, and it's likely one of the big reasons why people don't like it. Okay. Another reason, the damage outside of cooldowns is quite tank damage, pretty much. This spec works well if you do pull big or if the kill level is high enough, but on a low level keys to mid level keys, it's gonna be an absolute disaster so far. Like your damage is a lot like your Devourer is like Fire Mage, but a lot weaker. During meta or void meta, sorry, big dam. Outside of meta, tank dam. And the thing is, unlike Fire Mage, this spec scales really good on like a lot of mobs, because the more mobs you pull, the more shards you're gonna get, or fragments, I guess. Sorry, not shards, fragments. And then the more fragments you get, the more meta uptime you're gonna do, and the more damage you're gonna do. Like it's like a avalanche, you know. Unfortunately, as we see it fit right now, I believe it should probably get redistributed of how you do damage. That's likely gonna be the best thing that I can say about Devourer. Outside of being buffed, perhaps not a button that can help them, you know, maneuver through, in my opinion. I don't know. I just feel like something's missing about the spec, and I'm quite not sure what that could be. Those specs hasn't really moved here, and I think they are equal in terms of power. Neither of their tanks got changed, by the way, just keep that in mind. I think Guardian Druid becomes a lot less spammy in Midnight, which is actually an advantage to you. If you didn't like how boring Guardian is, it's gonna be a lot less boring Midnight. I think the damage output is, in my opinion, one of the big reasons why you are placed here. I think durability is fine for the most part, even with your minor cooldowns, but damage, it just doesn't feel quite there yet for them. And Blood Decay, I don't think Blood Decay is bad, but I don't think it's good. I think it's just the equivalent of just being mid everywhere, right? It's amazing spec to do weekly keys, low level keys, but on the extreme high end keys, although your damage looks to be pretty good, you just can die. You can just flop quite easily. Oh, another reason I think this spec has become significantly easier. So if you were playing before Blood Decay and if you were thinking about, oh shit, this spec is so difficult to master, it becomes a lot easier in Midnight, which is obviously an advantage to anybody looking to try tank as Blood Decay. Havoc DH, although, has been getting a massive improvements in Midnight, and when I say massive, I mean like you're gonna become significantly tankier while retaining your great damage profile that has that niches, you know, prior target slash further damage. I think the tuning of Havoc is just not quite there yet. Like your sustained AoE damage is actually pretty decent. The burst damage is okay too, but the single target is another area where I believe it should get further noticed and buffed. And in general, I think Havoc can benefit from having buffs. Like whether they are single target, they're AoE or auto buffs, any buffs are gonna be welcome to Havoc DH. But I can't say anything bad about the spec. It plays super good, it's significantly easier, and it's quite mobile. Good self-sustain, better durability, and a good damage profile. This is one of the few candidates on 8th tier that I believe after a small buffs, you're gonna jump straight to A+. It just needs some little bit more damage. Now, Enhanced Shaman, although we've tried all kind of builds. We've tried Totemic builds, we've tried Stormbringer, we've tried 1 minute burst damage and 2 minutes, etc. Neither of the builds look to be insanely good. Now, they weren't bad. Don't get me wrong. Enhanced wasn't doing bad in terms of output, but it wasn't doing great either. You know, it's literally a mid performer. That's it. It does pretty well when it comes down to design and playstyle. I love it, but neither of the damage testing gave me any indication of that spec just being strong. And I've also spoke to people that made Enhanced Shaman and they play better consistently. And I also spoke to people that tutorcraft on behalf of Enhanced Shaman. And although the majority of the vote was yes, Enhanced is pretty fun to play, but the current power is not great, it was the overwhelming answer for most people. And I also share their opinion. I think Enhanced is also a reason why I believe even if you did damage, you are still glass cannon. The squishiest DPS so far, and not by a small margin. I mean like by far. The most squishy DPS so far, by far. And I hope so. I really hope so. That they're gonna do something about Ellie and enhanced defenses. Because that's one thing that I believe, even if you are super good damage, you still might not be picked up because of how easily you can die. But so far, a little bit of an L for enhanced shamans. I think arms are actually doing pretty well. For the most part out of my testing, arms perform pretty well. It's just that auto specs simply do more output. You know, that's pretty much it. I think in a full physical comp, like I'm actually saying in a full physical comp, I think arms can actually be A+ tier, and I mean like, you know, Fury Warriors. Sorry, I mean like a Battle Shout needed with Mystic Touch, etc. Wind Fury as well. Arms can actually be A+ tier, 100%. As long as you put Wind Fury inside a group and Mystic Touch, A+, 100%. But as a standalone spec, I would say A tier is a lot more relatable. Okay. Fury can be S tier in that case. Yep, it could be. Who knows? It could be. But I think for now speaking, A tier is a big compliment for arms. You know, the rotation has one extra button, Heroic Track, which is your Apex Talents. For the most part, plays similar to what you can expect from the War Within. You know, the learning curve is just pretty much the same, maybe a little bit easier. Yeah, that's it. That's it. Arms is great. Yeah, I will disappoint you. But I think next in line is gonna be Ellie Shaman, and I will explain why. Now, at first, when I played Ellie, it did really well on the damage meters and also on the initial testings. However, I would say the biggest weakness on Ellie Shaman right now is the consistent damage, like the sustained damage of Ellie Shaman. Single target is great, on-demand burst is amazing, but the consistent damage of Ellie is most definitely an area where they have to get buffed. And one of the large reasons why I believe the sustained damage is bad is also due to that DRE does not exist. There is no more DRE, right? Which was super important, if you guys remember, to do damage outside of major cooldowns. Because during Ascendance, we always did good damage. Whether it's gonna be single target or three-way doesn't really matter. But the sustained damage is where they are struggling. And I mean, when I say struggling, I mean like real struggles, okay? Unfortunately for you, the Farseer build is actually doing better than Stormbringer for the most part, which makes Farseer build lose all of the prior damage of Ellie Shaman. Like previously, Ellie Shaman had insane prior due to Stormbringer, Tempest plus Ecos of the Grey Sundering. Now Ecos is gone and only Stormbringer is left with Tempest. However, Farseer right now does better, therefore Ellie loses the prior damage as well. And also you are pretty squishy too. Another L. Yeah, so for the most part, Ellie most definitely does way better in Raid than in Mythic Plus. So if you are a Raider and you're considering playing Ellie, you're gonna do fantastic. In Mythic Plus right now, an average performer at most. Outlaw goes right next to Ellie Shaman. Now, I must say, I was pretty much doomer of Outlaw Rogue before the new Trickster build was found. If you guys remember, back in December, around the middle of December, and mostly all Outlaw Rogues were playing Fatebound. However, after figuring out that Trickster does better and after switching, I can guarantee you, Trickster Outlaw is doing pretty well. Now, from a pure gameplay point of view, if you're not a big fan, of fast playstyle, I think Outlaw has gotten easier in that field. You know, previously, if you remember in the War Within, Outlaw was incredibly high APM spec. Right now, in Midnight, it's a lot less APM required. requirement, which makes it easier for the most part. So I think that's another reason why I love Outlaws right now way better. It kind of resembles the old BFA Outlaw, which is I think for me more fun. But yeah, I think the single target is also an area where they need to get buffed immediately. Slightly more damage everywhere wouldn't hurt either, and energy gen is also bad at times on Outlaw. Those are the three things I love to get fixed ASAP. I think single target is the topmost priority to get fixed on Outlaw. You know, like real quick, like real quick. There's one more spec that I've placed it unsure yet, and that's gonna be Outlaw Rogue. I did not mention that at the beginning, but I think Outlaw Rogue is another spec that I'm just not 100% confident where they belong as of right now, because I think I just need more practice on the spec itself. I don't think necessarily it has a lot of bugs done to them. It's just that I just need more experience playing Outlaw Rogue to have an adequate opinion. Overall, what I can see is energy starvation at times can be difficult to digest, but the burst damage on Outlaw Rogue is actually pretty good. Burst damage felt pretty good. Sustained damage felt pretty weak, at least for me. I think this spec might do very well on like the highest level keys. When I say the highest, I mean like 17, 18 plus. Because sometimes on like 15, things are dying so quick that my death mark can really be consumed at times. Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's all I can say about Outlaw Rogue. Right. Honestly, I was pretty dooming on Sub Rogue as well. For the most part, I didn't like how Sub Rogue played, but so part of that could be because I was inexperienced playing Sub Rogue. After playing different builds, I think Trickster Sub actually plays pretty well. For the most part, I was like, yeah, this shit is fucking boring, whatever, but it still might be the case. It still might be boring, but at least Trickster is more engaging because you have to wave, you know, eviscerates with Coup de Grace, Black Powders, as always, and the Nimble of Fury is also changed to the point where Shadow Strike in Mass AoE is not really something you want to do now compared to before. But overall, I would still say that Sub Rogue is most definitely one of the easiest melee specs, and I don't think it does as terrible. The front load damage on Sub is actually pretty good. Yeah, I think for the most part is great. I really enjoy playing it. It's just that number is not there for me at least. It's just that bit more tuning on Sub could be good. Outside of measured cooldowns, your damage is it's just mid, not really great, I'd say. Frost Decay, although hasn't seen much changes, I still believe to be a solid performer by any means going forward to midnight. Now, the rotational differences on Frost Decay compared to Revolver 10 is mostly the same. Like, the rotation is literally the same. The only thing that is changing is that your Frost Worm becomes an active talent because you gotta play around it due to your Apex talents actually being inside your rotation because they kind of buff your Frost Worm, right? So for me, Unholy goes right next to top of the A tier, bottom of A plus in my opinion, with placement changing depending on a key levels. I think on a high level keys, I'll go Unholy over Frost and vice versa for like low level keys, etc. So yeah, I think Frost is great. Good prior damage because you play Deadbringer. Great burst. Pretty tanky. Yeah, I can't say anything bad about that, you know. Pretty big W's. Now, okay, so for the people confused, the reason why Beast Mastery Hunter goes from C tier to A tier is simply because they have a new build called the Chinese build. Now, the reason why that is because we first spotted this build on Warcraft logs by Chinese players playing it, and it does so much better than the traditional regular BM Hunter build with your dire beast, right? So the Chinese BM Hunter doesn't play dire beast at all. Your damage is still based on pets as always, but it's also a lot more centered towards your barb shots, which makes it a little bit more fun to play. I will be showing you later on BM Hunter, but it does, in my opinion, quite well. both single target and AoE. And sustained damage as well. Which stats did you use for BM Hunter testing? Neither. I have not optimized my BM Hunter stats. But I'm pretty sure it's gonna be probably Haste Mastery, bit of crit. Or crit mastery, depends on how heavy AoE you're playing. Because your damage comes from pets, it should be probably mastery though. Haze for faster globals and more barb shots. So Haze mastery crit probably. Probably, not sure. Full crit mastery, my damage was compared to the Evoker. I have locks on this. Holy Paladin. Now, the reason why I place Holy Paladin 8 here, even though the current tuning of Paladin is not amazing, and when I say not amazing, I mean like they lack the output, healing, and damage output to be S tier. I think the design of Holy Paladin is great. Midnight. I believe the quality of life updates have been serving them at a very high stake. And also the utility of Holy Paladin is amazing. And also you got an immunity. So all of this together makes me believe that once they buff Holy Paladin, and I believe they will, because they also don't do amazing in the raid, Holy Paladin will rise in the rankings. And Holy Priest, I have to place in unsure yet. Another aspect that I'm not 100% confident where they belong when it comes down to performance. I've seen several Holy Priests play, but neither of them did exceptional. People are saying there are quite a few bugs surrounding Holy Priest that doesn't really make them do their full output, or at least the output that they can do. Hence why I would rather wait a bit longer until I place Holy Priest anywhere. For now, unsure yet until more changes come to them, or at least hotfixes for Holy Priest. Brewmaster Monk and Protection Warrior have placed an A+ tier. And there's several reasons for that. First of all, Brewmaster is a tank that I believe goes to be from one of the hardest tanks to actually a lot easier than before. Which is always a good thing because barrier to entry on tank should be lower so more people can play it. But bottom load on Brewmaster Monk is gone. Again, your rotation loop is pretty much close to being the same. I think damage output of Brewmaster Monk is actually pretty good. Durability at times feels wonky, but for the most part you're gonna do fine. If you have to kite, I guess, to regen your defensive abilities again. I think one of the things that I've seen about monks is that you only really have like one big major defensive, and that's like your stagger. Your fortified brew. That's like your biggest defensive, and that is the case also for Mistweaver and Windwalker. I believe Dampen Harm, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe Dampen Harm got removed from the game. It does not exist anymore, and I believe the other defensive talent, what was it called? Not Dampen Harm, but the other magical Diffuse Magic, was it? Diffuse Magic got reworked for worse. It does not give you DR, but you can also reflect back the dots to the beneficiary, I guess. Yeah, so neither of those defensive abilities are what they used to be, which is fine. But if you play more defensive builds, if you have stagger, if you have your external defensive cooldowns on actually whenever you need it, and a bit of kiting should be fine. Brew has a bug that gives every other breath of fire 50% increased damage. Okay, so they actually do more damage than intended. Interesting. Celestial Brew infusion doesn't work. Aha, got you. Interesting. And Protection Warrior, I think most definitely after a buff to Protection Warrior like a month ago, they do just a lot better. It feels slower to play, but durability and damage wise, they do quite good. For the most part, they are quite strong still. Not the best tanks by far, but yeah, I think they are quite strong right now, especially in the physical meta, which there are quite a few specs that can benefit from Battle Shout. I think they do for the most part pretty well. I remember Protection Warriors before the buff, they were so bad to play that nobody played them, but after the buff, they do. I guess people are still mad about anger management nerfs, which you can feel them at times. Now, why do I think Fire Mage goes to A tier, to A+ tier? Now, there are a few things that indicate to me that Fire is not worth to be S tier, And one of them is gonna be single target. I think single target of Fire Mage is most definitely an area where they have to get improved with the Mythic Plus build. The raid build of Fire Mage does insane single target. That's the first thing. Second thing, outside of combustion damage, which is your major cooldowns, your damage is very bad. No, okay, so not very bad, but like definitely bad, right? So every single time you go into the pack with no combust, or you gotta wait until you get your combustion back, you are pretty much gonna do tank damage. And now people are gonna be like, oh, but that's always the case, yada yada yada. But now your damage is a lot more centered towards that combustion. So during combust, you feel like an Exodia slamming the shit out of Yu-Gi-Oh! But outside of combust, you feel like I don't know. Think about a bad Pokemon. Like fucking, I don't know, bro. Like Happiny, for example. Happiny is the most useless Pokemon. That's pretty much Fire Mage. At times. Next in line goes Hunter. Now, a lot of people believe Hunter is actually a dead spec. Quite a contrary to that, by the way. I think Hunter actually does quite well. Both sustain and burst damage. However, even 2-target damage, does not do that bad. A lot of people think that they are still dog shit in 2 targets. They are not amazing, but they ain't dog shit. Okay? And one of the biggest reasons for that is because your multi-shot actually does quite beefy damage, which makes your 2-target multi-shot precise shots consumption the main reason why your 2 targets are actually decent. Okay? But the biggest disadvantage, just like Fire Mage, is that your single target is quite bad. Quite bad single target. And I really hope that they focus on tuning the single target up ASAP. And probably buffing Arcane Shot will be the play. Give it like 100% buff on Arcane Shot damage. Might solve the problem for you. Or something along the line. Maybe like steady shot more damage by 500%. I don't fucking know. But anyway, that's gonna be a goal for Hunter in my opinion in the weeks to come. Unfortunately, Unholy Decay gets demoted from the best DPS to the atrocious cyberbullying to being A+ tier. There are quite a few reasons why I believe Unholy goes to A+ tier. And the biggest reason why that is, and I know a lot of you guys don't know about this, but Unholy Decay got a huge stealth nerfs in December. Now, that has already been confirmed by DK Discord. And by the way, big shout out to Taznak. He found the hotfix nerfs first. Those numbers were significant enough for Unholy to go from S to A+ tier. Unfortunately to all of the DK enjoyers, that is the case right now. Now, that has not been confirmed by Blizzard yet, only has been confirmed by the DK theory crafters. And then once again, if you guys don't believe me, you can go to the DK Discord and ask me, hey guys, is Petko fucking out of his mind telling me that DK got nerfed? And they'll tell you, that hotfix nerf was present in December and nobody knew about it. Okay? So that is the only reason why Unholy goes from S to A+ tier. Besides that point, the playstyle of Unholy is absolutely incredible. If you are looking for a main, something that has a completely different playstyle and is quite fun and engaging, Unholy is, with all of my hands, down the best probably. Design wise so far, I really enjoy Unholy. It's great, love it. It's super tanky, big burst damage, sustained damage every 45 seconds with your minor cooldowns feels a bit iffy for the most part, but yeah, I think if the key is high enough, I mean, like, you know, it's like 17 plus key on beta, I was doing pretty well. It's just that on a low level keys, you just need more time to ramp up, therefore not amazing. Okay, so if you're playing Unholy on low level keys, just go for OZK instead. But yeah, I don't think Unholy is the best DPS anymore. They were the best DPS for like 2 weeks until the nerf. Well, it is what it is. Fuck it. Now, a big reason why Affliction goes to the A+ tier is because they got buffed in December. If you guys remember, Affliction wasn't doing that good, but in December they got buffed quite significantly, and ever since then they really haven't seen a lot of changes, if not anything. Now, The playstyle of Affliction got completely changed. Malefic Rupture doesn't exist. You only cast Seed of Corruption in mass AoE, and that's about it. That's your AoE spender. Your single target spender is Unstable Affliction, which in my opinion is a lot better way to put it and do damage. Your single target actually does pretty well for the most part for Affliction Lock, which is actually a good advantage. The prior target damage at times feels iffy because you don't have your Malefic Rupture funnel anymore with the prior target Unstable Affliction, but Hound still does good prior because it increases the damage the target takes by XYZ%, right? So I think the design of Affliction is not bad. The only bad thing about Affliction is that you can get active arthritis from playing Affliction because 90% of the time in Mythic Plus, you're gonna press Seed, 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 and that's it. You're gonna spread your seed everywhere. That's all you're gonna press. And maybe like maintain a handful of agonies to generate shards. That's it. You're gonna be seeding all the time. So if you love to spam one button 10 times back to back to back to back to back, and you have an average age above 45, I would probably not advise you to play Affliction, because you're probably gonna get your fingers twisted. So yeah, it's most definitely a little bit troublesome at times. Anyway, chat, that's about it. Okay, that's about it. Survival is definitely better than Fury in terms of output, both in sustain, burst, and single target. But because of Fury having Battle Shout, you are probably gonna get picked up a lot more often than Survival, which makes your damage, even though weaker than Survival, not the deciding factor in the placement. But if you only care about damage, standalone damage, in comparison with both, Survival gets the cake to be the best melee DPS right now. But once again, the best doesn't guarantee you the invites. And I believe because of the Battle Shout, and right now you are the strongest DPS or the strongest warrior spec, your Battle Shout is gonna be a significant leverage when you're being invited. Okay? So simply because of this, I believe Fury will be a lot more commonly invited compared to Survival, although Survival can do more DPS. But let's roll the movie back and talk about those two specs. I think Fury Warrior, for the most part, if you play Mountain 10, you do exactly the same as you were doing before. There's no difference when it comes down to rotation. It's simply the same, except that your Apex talents are making your major cooldowns do more damage. That's it. Survival Control, on the other hand, the playstyle got completely changed. Although some of the core rotation still is in place, for example, Wildfire Bombs, for the most part, the spec got torn into half. Like Butchery got removed, for example, your CA cooldown got removed, now it's Takedown. It's a combination of like Spearhead plus Coordinator Soul. Q command is now gonna be changing, by the way. It was no cooldown to now gonna be a cooldown and 2 stacks, which can make Tip of the Spear gameplay a little bit more difficult to master because you're gonna have a priority of empowerments. But for the most part, it's still gonna be Boomstick, which is the new talent that you can play, into bombs, into Boomstick, into bombs. That's gonna be your major loop of damage. And Flame Fang Pitch, the new talent, which is pretty much like Cocktail Molotov. Imagine you throwing that one, gives you CDR to bomb. It's gonna be a filler spell in between just to get your bombs back. And again, the more bombs you throw, the more CDR of Bombo Stick you're gonna get. And the more Bombo Sticks you're gonna cast, the more CDR and bombs you're gonna do. It's kind of like an infinite loop. And for the most part, I really have been enjoying it. And it plays pretty well. Now, I call it Bombo Stick because it was the easiest way to remember. Like, I'm trying to remember all of the new spells and abilities, and when I hear Boomstick, I think about Bombo Stick, and that makes it easier to remember. So yeah, it's the same thing for Flame Fang Pitch with Cocktail Molotov. Like, it's a lot more, feasible for me to remember this way because it's more commonly met. we have Restoration Shaman and Disc Priest. Those two guys remain the A+ tier. And there's a few reasons why that is. First of all, Restoration Shaman does quite well, both output, healing, and DPS. It's the only healer with Interrupt. It has a good utility as well. It's a better Sky Fury, which is insanely good party utility. And I think it's pretty decent pickup. You can play it in physical comps or range comps or hybrid. Doesn't matter. Disc Priest, on the other hand, in my opinion, slightly better than the Restoration Shaman. Amazing output and still one of the strongest external utility in the game, if not the strongest, and a quite good output for Mythic Plus, which makes it one of the best healers so far in Mythic Plus. I mean, in comparison to Restoration Druid, I still think it is inferior because the Restoration does everything better than what they do. Plus gives you a 3% versatility, which is pretty much more damage to everybody, plus DR, and has the best healing across all healers, which is, in my opinion, the deciding factor right now. That Vengeance DH and Protection Paladin right now are, in my opinion, the best tanks in Mythic Plus. Now, there are several reasons why that is, and it's because, first of all, Paladin damage, it will get an absolute nerf. That damage is like the craziest tank damage I've seen across all tanks so far in PTR. I think from a purely casual point of view, if you're playing like mid-level keys, you're probably gonna play Paladin over Vengeance DH. I think Vengeance is definitely tankier for the most part, at least what I've seen. And the crowd control of both tanks is incredible. The mob control is just purely incredible. So yeah, utility-wise, they're both insane. I would just say Prot Paladin have more niche/unique utility. But for the most part, Vengeance and Protection Paladin are your winners for tanks so far in Mythic Plus. And they're great, actually. I would also agree Paladin is definitely a better puck tank than Vengeance. It requires less coordination with the team because you can solo control the packs. And Vengeance is a bit more planning ahead, you know, thinking about cooldowns, whatever. Yeah. I think that's about Protection Paladin versus Vengeance DH. Also, for the people saying that Vengeance didn't get many changes, a lot of abilities got changed for Vengeance DH. Most notably, lifting the soft caps ups, which helps your aggro generation and retention too, and damage as well, which is a massive reason why people love to play Vengeance DH too. On top of the utility, the mob control, you know, etc. So that gets a thumbs up for me. The dark horse right now is most definitely Augmentation. And I know you guys hate to know this, but I consider Augmentation as one of the best DPSers right now. And the only reason why I'm putting Oak on a dark horse is because this pick becomes infinitely better on high level keys and perfect stats, which makes me believe on the extreme high-end level keys or rank 1 keys title in between that, Oak is gonna become, at least currently fundamentally design-wise, one of the best. I'm really looking forward to see that at the end of the season, if the Augmentation does not get changed, because there's still 2 months of tuning, things can change for them, but right now as it stands, Augmentation does, like, imagine Augmentation in Dragonflight. It's something like that. Majority of your damage comes from buffing others compared to personal damage. Like in the War Within, they've tried to shift buffing other players towards personal damage. That didn't work out. They scrapped it, and now they're getting back to like giving damage to other players with duplicate Apex talents, which I believe ought to be one of the best. Thank you, Chris. I appreciate it, bro. Destruction Warlock, in my opinion, is the best lock spec right now in the game. However, I'm gonna say this. Once they fix Demonology, I think Demo is likely gonna become the next, right next to Destrolock. Once they fix Demo. Now, there's several reasons why I consider Destro to be A+ tier and one of the best, if not the best A+ tier performer. First of all, the Chaos Bolt build, which pretty much does not cast Rain of Fire, is likely the most fun build they've had in years. Okay? Second, your consistent damage on Destro is amazing. Now, partially because of your, I guess, way to do damage, it comes from your Apex Talents, which in my opinion is the wrong approach of Destro, because it complicates to the point where your single target is actually not amazing, but your AoE is getting great. So the way to fix this is to get the power away from the Apex Talent and give you more raw power to your Chaos Bolt or Rain of Fire. This way, the damage stays the same, but you are the only person that actually dictate the damage you do, instead of having RNG proc damage, which makes your single target and prior damage a lot better. So it's actually a double win. If they do this for Destro, I think it's game over. This spec might become S tier. But for now speaking, I'll leave it to A+ tier. Okay? Frost Mage is currently the best, most overpowered spec that exists on beta. I think I've never seen more dominant spec so far that late into beta, and they haven't really nerfed it. And I think partially because of that is your single target. Frost Mage ST is not the best. Quite contrary, maybe above average. But your sustained AoE damage and AoE damage and burst damage is just incredible. I think for the most part, nobody was guessing whether Mage is gonna end up being S tier. I think people were like, which Mage will be S tier? And right now, Frost Mage is the only candidate that I can put with both hands and be like, that shit definitely S tier. So Mage is definitely S tier. And if there's only one thing that I could say, actually, listen up. Listen up. Listen up. I'll say this. Because your single target is not insane, there might be quite a large precedent of Frost Mage not being nerfed. So that's what I would say. Because your ST is not insane, you might not get nerfed. Although you should probably expect some changes because your Ice Lance and ignoring Ice Lance, for example, playstyle is pretty degenerate, which makes me believe they're gonna buff it probably, so they're gonna change a bit. But yeah, Frost Mage is crazy good right now, like from every single point of view. Definitely right. This is the very first time that I believe Devastation is so good that you are in S tier, which is very rare. So cherish the moment until you have it. Devastation Evoker is the next S tier spec right next to Frost Mage. There's several reasons why I believe that to be the case. First, burst damage, one of the best if not the best. Funnel damage, there is nobody that comes close to Death Evoker proud damage. And due to a bug, well, a lot of people say it's not a bug. I still think it's a bug. Your Consume Flame is a spell that should do overall AoE damage, not a proud target damage. But I would like you to clip this. Clip this for every single Death Evoker player. If they confirm Consume the Flame is not a bug and is the way that it's supposed to work, Devastation might end up being the meta spec Mythic Plus. And I say this with both hands, because that will make your proud target damage not only the best in a game, but the best in a game by a huge planet. That means you can delete bosses in a matter of like a minute shorter, a minute less time, which will make the key significantly easier. Hence why I believe Death will likely be, that Consume Flame will likely get fixed. But if it doesn't, Death will be the S tier spec, 100%. And yeah, last thing, Arcane goes to the Dark Horse as well. I think Arcane does one of the best, if not the best, single target in a game, but the sustained damage in AoE packs is not enough to be S tier anymore. Also, on the pre-patch, Arcane is getting slight nerf, which will probably translate to beta later. I think damage profile is still insane. I think you will end up playing Arcane in some keys because of your strong ST/power damage in funnel. But in the grand scheme, Frost is just better everywhere right now. That's it, chat. That is the tier list update. This is the 11th of January. If you like to clip it, take a screenshot, do so. Hope to have some changes next week so we can update it for Sunday. Hope you guys enjoyed it. And any feedback, you're welcome to type in the chat or on Discord. I'm willing to listen. So go ahead. Anything you guys want to tell me as a feedback, I'm here to listen. Do you agree? Do you disagree? And what could you do better to make this tier list better?